Let's bring you that breaking news then. We are told Liverpool are now in talks with Juventus over a deal for Federico Chiesa, and it's moving closer towards an agreement this afternoon. Discussions understood to be ongoing over an initial £10 million fee plus bonuses. Now, negotiations ongoing at the moment, but there is a confidence that a deal will be done. Now, Kiesa, we are told, has already said yes in principle to moving to Anfield. Liverpool, for their part, we are told, ready to give him a 4-year contract. So, Liverpool fans, it seems like this move for Federico Chiesa edging towards an agreement. Those talks understood to be ongoing this afternoon. Perfect timing then, because Italian football expert Mina Rizzucchi joins us live right now to react to that. Mina, great to see you again. It seems like this is now edging closer.
Yeah, it seems to be moving. So it's a story that's moved so quickly. I mean, yesterday when we were looking at what's going on, it seemed like Liverpool had just asked for information on Federico Chiesa, but that it was Barcelona that was looking to get the deal done. Spanish reports were that personal terms were being agreed, and Chiesa had okayed the deal and spoken to Hansi Flick. And then last night, the sporting director of Juventus met with the agent of Kiesa and several other directors from Juventus. So that's when it seemed like things were going to get really serious, and that there was a link to Liverpool that was now a genuine interest. An offer was looking to be made, and Kiesa was excited by the opportunity of moving to Liverpool. And obviously now, as we've heard from the breaking news, it seems like you can't really wait for Barcelona. Liverpool is the club chosen. They have shown the interest. 10 million is still perhaps a little too low for Juventus. It depends on what the bonuses are that they agree. But this is a bargain for what was once considered Italy's starlet.
You mentioned some of the options that he potentially had in this window. Was there ever an option for him to stay at Juve? Just outline the reasons why they are comfortable in letting this player go.
Are we asking Juventus directors, or are we asking the fans? Because the fans are up in arms about Federico Chiesa leaving, largely because of the promise he had shown, because he was going to be the future of the team. But it hasn't really worked out, and it's very difficult to blame the player for all of this. Obviously, when he arrived, he took the club by storm. He was brilliant to watch under Andrea Pirlo. So agile, so mobile, so direct in the way that he plays. And he was always coming to the rescue of Juventus. But unfortunately, he did suffer that ACL injury in January 2022. And we're yet to really see the player come back to the levels that we had seen previously. He's still hitting top speeds. He's still an incredibly great player when he accelerates. But unfortunately, it just seemed like with Max Allegri, who played a more cautious style of football, you could say very miserable style of football, it wasn't really great for the attackers of Juventus. And there was never this understanding between him and Chiesa. And it seemed like Chiesa's form just kept on dropping. And when it came to Thiago Motta taking over, we thought this would be the opportunity. But with 1 year left on his contract, nothing agreed. And all these rumors about him wanting so much money. Juventus has a sustainable issue. They want to be more sustainable. They want to rely on youthful players. And Thiago Motta decided that he's not the type of player that will fit into his plan. And so it's unfortunate for the fans, and he needs a place where he can start. But I'm not sure he's going to get that at Liverpool either.
Mina, there's a few concerns around potentially him being injury prone. He obviously had that really big injury. How much of a worry is that?
Of course, it's always a worry when a player has an ACL injury and then he's really suffered off the back of that, because he missed a year dealing with that, and Juventus were patiently waiting for him to come back because he, for them, was the difference maker. So they were willing to wait however long was necessary. But even when he came back, there was always all these niggly injuries. I do want to caveat this with the fact that Italy and Juventus and Milan, as two examples, have suffered a lot with a lot of these injuries, and this will take time. But I do think that this is something that he can get out of. So I wouldn't necessarily say he's always falling injury into different things. He had an ACL. He suffered off the back of it. But hopefully, if he starts training properly and feels happy, I think that also will lead him to stay on his feet and be injury-free. But obviously, we don't know. It is always a worry. But we're talking about 10 million, so I would think it's a bargain.
I mean, I just wonder, what do you think he'll bring to Liverpool? And especially, what do you think he can bring that's unique compared to the options that they already have?
Unique is a difficult word, but he is an incredibly direct player, can play on the left or right, can even play as a second striker, although he's not really a huge fan of that, to be honest with you. But when he did, he was astonishing to watch. You really need to just watch the match, for example, in Euro 2020 when he played against Spain, even in the final. It's these tears, it's his acceleration, it's his dribbling movements. He can get past his man. He can hit top speeds, which are 34, 35 kilometers an hour. He covers a lot of ground. It's a little bit less so now as he's gotten a little bit older, but that also is something that depends on where he's been playing with Juventus and the style of football that they were playing as well. But the problem with Chiesa as well at times is that he's not somebody who occupies space in exactly the way that Italian coaches love or what is needed in Serie A. At times, he can't really rid himself of the marker. So the problem with Chiesa really has been that he hasn't yet connected with a coach who's been able to develop his talent. He's got bags full of talent, so much technique. But unfortunately, it's about reading the game and knowing how to play with your teammates, about knowing when to get rid of the markers, knowing how to free yourself up so that you can receive the ball and deliver and play with the others. And that's not really been his forte. His forte is at times head down, dribbles, gets really far. His acceleration is on show, and he's sort of almost a one-man band, always wanting to come to the rescue. Give me the ball. I'm going to run. I'm going to try to score a goal. And he's got a beautiful finish on him too. But it's about really incorporating into the team dynamics, sort of showing him the way. And I don't think he's really had that in Italy. And so it's about what he can develop and that relationship that he'll have with Arne Slot. If they can find that connection, I do genuinely think that Chiesa's technique will be on show and it'll be fun to watch.
Mina, just a question about his character. Obviously, there's a lot of talk among Juve fans that they absolutely adore him, they love him. But previously, there was comments from Allegri saying he's not really lived up to the expectation, and Thiago Motta immediately said, "I've got no plans for him." Is that a potential character problem, or as a character, is he maybe what Juve fans believe?
No, I don't think it's necessarily a character issue. They've never spoken about him as having a bad attitude, to be honest with you. It's more the tactical understanding of the game that he perhaps isn't the best at when it comes to Italian players. He's somebody who's got so much technique, but like I said, a lot of the times he seems to be a soloist. He likes to play to the rhythm of his own beat, and that can be a little bit frustrating for certain coaches where tactics, especially in Serie A, is the most important thing. He is very beloved by all the fans. I mean, Fiorentina fans were up in arms when he's leaving to Juventus. Juventus are still desperately sad to see their starlet leave, the man that they thought would be the future of the team. So it's not really his character. It's more about how he finds himself within the team and whether or not he can play as this part of unit. A lot of the times it's head down for him. So he needs to learn how to lift up his head, look for his teammates a little bit more and work on developing that and his ability in the spaces. But I wouldn't say there's anything that was attitude was a problem. He is the son of Federico Chiesa. And when he's wanted to prove himself, Chiesa will work hard. He's determined to cut holidays short, come back, work really hard on being somebody special. But he also needs to feel loved and he needs to develop a relationship with a coach. And I think with Thiago Motta, I'm fairly certain that he had a few more years on his contract and Juventus weren't so desperate to sell because the contract was nearly up in 2025, then I'm sure that they would have found a way of incorporating him and making him a star.
I mean, if he needs to feel loved, he should come here because all Nabai does is talk about him all day. Away from Chiesa, what's going on with Osimhen? We've been talking about him all window. Do you think he'll stay at Napoli? Where do you think he'll end up?
You've been talking about him all window. That's all we've been talking about over there as well. So they've received an offer from Saudi, which the player doesn't want to. He's holding out for an offer from PSG because ideally that's where he finds himself. And he's hoping that at one point PSG will come calling for him. Of course, the clause in his contract is for 130 million. But as we understand it, Napoli now need to unblock their dealings, their transfer dealings. They've already started to spend money because they're hoping that something will come back from Osimhen. They're willing to cut off 70 million at this point. They're going down on how much it is that they're asking for him. And Chelsea seem to be the most interested and willing to come in for him. I don't think Chelsea is his first choice. It seems that PSG was, from our understanding. But at this point, he doesn't want to stay to Napoli and he doesn't want to go to Saudi Arabia. So unfortunately for him, considering how much he makes and how much he costs, there's not that many available options for him.
Staying with Napoli, Scott McTominay, what do you think Napoli are getting in him? Is that a signing you're excited about?
I think that's a signing that Antonio Conte and Napoli are excited about. It's exactly the player that they are looking and that they need right now. It seems like one of the issues that they had is that they have an attack that works. They have excellent wingers, but they need more midfielders. It's just not enough right now. They already had lost the likes of Zielinski to Inter, and they needed to replace somebody with dynamism and ability to win back the ball. And that's exactly what Antonio Conte wants to do, so that he can create a more dynamic and aggressive and hungry team that we haven't seen from Napoli. Napoli is usually that pretty team that's missing that kind of midfielder that McTominay can be. So if they can bring him, and they still have eyes on Billy Gilmour, then they'll have a complete midfield.
And Mina, what about Romelu Lukaku? Is he there? Has he arrived? What's going on there? Is he going to be there for Antonio Conte? A reuniting of Conte's favourite?
Yes, it seems like it's his blanket that he takes with him to every club. And Lukaku does do his best work under Antonio Conte. 24 goals at Inter under the manager. And this is a player, really, honestly, I think that with Antonio Conte, for him, when he arrived, he already knew that Osimhen was on his way out. So it was about finding a replacement at the time, because it looked like Osimhen didn't want to stay. And Lukaku is a player that he's worked with, that he knows can be powerful, that plays to the exact type of role that Conte needs to bring out the best of his team and those wingers that Napoli do boast. So it's about Lukaku has arrived now. He arrived in Rome, actually, to sign contracts with the owner, Aurelio De Laurentiis, and to do his medicals in Villa Stuart in Rome. And he arrived with Napoli fans already there, ready to welcome him. One of them even fell and he helped them up. And it was all this like Greek tragedy scene. Everyone's so excited to be watching him arrive. So we think he's going to make a difference. But we're excited about what Antonio Conte revolution at Napoli is going to look like. And for it to really kick off, then he needs a striker. And Lukaku always comes to the rescue when it comes to Conte.
Mina, great to get your thoughts. Thanks very much.
Thanks for having me.
So let's just recap what we have learnt in the last few minutes, that Liverpool are in talks with Juventus over a move for Federico Chiesa, and crucially, it's moving towards an agreement with both clubs. Discussions understood to be ongoing over an initial £10 million fee plus bonuses. I think there's a bit of confidence now from both sides that this is going to get done. And also, another significant strand to this story, Kiesa has already said yes, in principle, to moving to Anfield. Liverpool are getting a 4-year contract ready for him to sign. So that is the news reaching us in the last 10 minutes or so here on Transfer Talk. And Abaid, how does Chiesa compare to Liverpool's current options?
Well, I think Mina's obviously spoken about his character, spoken about his time at Juve, spoken about managers that have coached him and what he needs. But actually, the interesting point here is how he fits into this Liverpool team and where he fits in. Of course, if you think about Salah and Jota, the right side attack is sorted and the central attack is sorted. And then you have 4 other options. And if you compare him here with his shot-creating actions to Darwin and Gakpo, he's ahead of both of those. Luis Diaz has been outstanding for the last 12 months. He's slightly ahead of Federico Chiesa. And as you move on to progressive carries, which I think is really important for Arne Slot's wingers, you've got to be able to drive. And that is what he excels in. Very close numbers to Luis Diaz. And I'd say they have a similar style in that regard. Left-sided attackers who want to come inside, take players on. I'd say Chiesa is much more of a powerful sprinter in possession. And then you look at successful take-ons. And again, Luis Diaz, I mean, he is the outlier in this. But as I mentioned, he's probably the 3rd striker. Chiesa comes in as your 4th option. He's ahead of Darwin Núñez. He's ahead of Cody Gakpo. And so you kind of go, OK, Chiesa is sort of settling into that 4th position. And then this is a really important one for an Arne Slot winger. Progressive passes received. Again, Luis Diaz is ahead of the other 3, but Chiesa and Darwin Núñez very, very similar, and Cody Gakpo down at the bottom. All the stats sort of lead to Chiesa being able to fit into either that left side or that right side, despite him playing as a sort of like shadow striker last season. I think, obviously, as Dan just said, I'm in love with the man. I think he's going to be completely fine. But the price for me is unbelievable, 10 million or there or thereabouts.
Yeah, the price certainly makes it very tempting for Liverpool, and the direction of travel this afternoon is that it seems like this is edging closer, Chiesa to Liverpool. If he's the only signing this window for Liverpool, is that a success for this window for Liverpool, Dan?
I said on Monday that I think Liverpool can be satisfied with what's happened this window. I like that Schlott's gone in there and he hasn't gone in there and reinvented the wheel. He's taken stock of what he's got at his disposal, looked at a lot of players, and the sign of a good coach is a manager that will go there and coach the players that are already there rather than panic buying and buying players for the sake of it. And I think what Michael Edwards has shown in the past, if it's not the right fee, if it's not the right player, we won't do anything. Obviously, Richard Hughes is the guy in charge of transfers with Edwards overseeing now. But I think it's good that Liverpool haven't been rushed into anything. They've spotted an opportunity here with Kiesa. There might be a few question marks over it that we discussed earlier, but at that price point, I think it's a risk that's definitely worth taking. It's probably not even a risk at that price because there's a massive upside. With Kiesa, I think in an ideal world, if they could have found the right number 6, I think Liverpool fans would like to see a bit of a refresh in the midfield area, someone that's more suited to what Slot wants than perhaps a couple of the midfielders that are there already. But I think you look at Liverpool's squad, you watch them play in the first 2 games, I still think it's exciting times.
And I think the injury question is something that's always going to get levelled at Liverpool for this one, but they have shown they're not afraid of doing deals for players who've had injuries in the past, thinking about Thiago, thinking about Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. If they spot a player who perhaps they think is undervalued, they're quite happy to strike and get the deal done. So that is what we've been talking about. Federico Chiesa in talks, Juventus in talks with Liverpool over a move and negotiations edging towards a conclusion.